Having a business is actually easy. It's the cost of doing business that's hard. It's like being in a bad relationship where you're the one giving and giving and giving all the time.
15 years, a multi-million-dollar music company. Brad knew how to track a financial ROI, but what finally broke him wasn't about money.
I just need some therapy. I'm struggling here. I don't know if I want to keep doing this. When those return on investments aren't working anymore, that's when I decided, okay, I'm done with it. The lower the emotional ROI that comes into play, the lower resilience we're going to have to keep going.
In this episode, Brad breaks down the hidden metrics in business, whether it's building or solely training.
That emotional ROI is equally as important, if not more. We can almost solve anything if we just stop for 30 minutes. Let our brain be and let it get really quiet.
If the business you built ever feels heavy, this episode is for you. What was the emotion that you struggled with the most as an entrepreneur?
I have three things coming up: guilt, shame, and self-worth.
Whoa. Before we get started, most of you watching are not subscribed. If you're into conversations about emotional intelligence, intuition, and high-level decision-making, hit subscribe. It's free, it takes a second, and it's the biggest way you can support the show. I'll keep bringing powerful guests and deep conversations. All right, let's get started.
So Brad, I want to hear the beginning of your entrepreneurial journey and then how you got to where you are now.
In the beginning, I knew that not going in the normal 9-to-5 lifestyle is something that I didn't want to do. And I had that first, let's call it thought, when I was in elementary school, about 5th grade. Graduated from college with an accounting and financial intelligence degree. Didn't want to go work for the firms. So shout out to Steamboat Springs, Colorado. Set up my first company doing mail order. And I kept trying to start things while I was doing a day job. So it took about 5 years and I kept trying to sell things online. Finally, I got a music company to work. So started selling drums and percussion gear online. That internet company grew really fast. We ended up buying out another drums and percussion retail company, one of the first 6 in Denver, Colorado. I was also partners in an internet marketing firm for about 5 years. Sold the music companies about 8 years ago.
At what point did you decide to sell? Why did you sell?
Oh, that's a great question. So one of my business mentors that I was consulting with every single week on how to keep growing it. And I was probably 15 or so years into this journey of the music companies. And they're like my babies, right? They're like my babies. Right. I started them when I was 22. And I was just starting to get emotionally and financially frustrated. And sometimes we can go through it when one's working, right? When your emotions are high, when you're an entrepreneur, you can go through all the financial hardships. When the finances are going great, you can work through the emotional. And all of a sudden, it was after a long time, I'm like, something's just not starting working. So literally on one of the phone calls with my business mentor, I requested with her to turn it into a therapy call. I go, I think I just need some therapy. I'm like, I'm struggling here. I don't know if I want to keep doing this. And by the end of that phone call, she said, you got to get yourself from underneath those companies.
You had too much pressure from the companies.
I think it was too much pressure, both emotionally and financially. So when both of those return on investments aren't working anymore, that's when I decided, okay, I'm done with it.
Did you feel that because the finances were not doing good, they're down, that it was almost like your baby is sick?
Yes. And I also thought that I was getting kind of sick of having to keep running this. Maybe I felt like I was done with the team, done hearing about certain complaints. Maybe it wasn't running as well anymore. So maybe you've had an experience in your life where there is a financial, but more importantly, an emotional ROI. Where's the emotional return?
Yeah.
And being an entrepreneur as well.
Dive more into that, the emotional ROI.
Yeah. So there's something that gets me up in the morning, right? There's something that gets entrepreneurs up in the morning that helps us grind through everything, through the ups, the downs, the lack of the financials and what was there. And there's something about the spirit and the wins that help return it, right? Even if we might be losing financially, there's still something in the entrepreneurial journey for me where I know that I can win. And eventually when that emotional battery starts to run low, maybe you're having not as much wins, maybe something isn't aligned anymore. there's also the culture aspect, right? Like what's happening with the teams. And so that emotional ROI is equally as important, if not more, because one of the things that I learned when we were running the business accelerator and people that we were watching, you have the owner, the entrepreneur, who's like the jockey, and then you have their products and services, which are like the horse. And what I learned from all the investors is they're always watching the jockey and who is the person behind it. And if their emotional ROI is always driving things and they have the emotion and the force to keep going through, almost like the resilience. So the lower the emotional ROI that comes into play, the lower resilience we're going to have to keep going, to keep executing what's there.
Simon Sinek talked about how to be an infinite player. And he was talking about with businesses, the goal isn't to get money. The goal is to keep playing. It's what you're saying of like the wins. And I've been there definitely with Grip Meta. If the wins outweigh the losses, then we're good. So then we're like in the positive ROI emotionally. But the second that doesn't happen, it's terrible. The passion wasn't really there. Well, if I'm still winning, then I'll play.
You're talking about the emotional concept that you notice you started to lose your emotional momentum, your emotional desire. Yeah. So if that relationship, in a relationship, we want both to work. And so if that return on investment isn't coming back, there's no longer that symbiotic relationship. It's like being in a bad relationship where you're the one giving and giving and giving all the time. And then where is the lack of return? And I'm sure you've had it too. I mean, I've had 6 months, a year. I think my longest run with being, let's call it in the dark as an entrepreneur, like going through the darkest times, was after 2008, after I had used all my cash reserves from a very successful company to buy out another company. And we had a double inventory. And then in the first company, which was internet, moved into a building 5 times the size. So overhead almost tripled. All the cash reserves got used up. All that. Then came 2008. It was like boom, 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 boom. I'm like, wow, we are in a tough position. Luckily, with my accounting and financials degree, I know how to operate a very sound company. I am never working from a place to where if and when a black swan event comes in, it tumbles us. It was actually the first video I ever did to my companies is when 2008 hit, they were scared in the 2 companies. And it was the first ever video I did to both of the companies in the 2 different states where I said, hey, we're in a tough position, but I want to let you know we're okay. This will shake out the week. We have a runway of about a year. And this is actually a good thing. This will shake out the weak companies of people who have no cash, who are at their credit limits, who don't have, they don't know how to run their businesses intelligently from a financial standpoint. And they're probably out of money. They're probably out of credit room, and it's okay, and we'll make it. But that's when I chose to stop paying myself. And then I stopped paying myself, and you see a company in the red, right? So now you got company profit and loss gone, cash getting really low, my payments going to zero, personal savings starting to dip. And so having a team that I really loved, they were with me for 9 years, had 0 turnover, except one person we got rid of at the end for 9 years. My best friend was my first hire. Huh?
How big was the team? How big was the team?
Only five.
Okay. So 5, no one left. Okay.
Yeah. The core 4. And then they were just magic. They were just young people who didn't have degrees, who cared about music, who were creative. And it just kept growing and growing. But I cared about them so much. I remember how many nights did I go home and stare at the ceiling and be like, how am I going to get through this? How am I going to get through this? How are we going to get through this? And you just see that timeline just start to go down, but it's like a year. And that was probably the most stressful part of my entrepreneurial career because of how much I care for other people and your employees, because you want to make sure you keep paying them and you make through it.
Caring for other people in this situation is like the glue of the culture. At what point does that trait have bad side effects?
Quite a bit. I think that is very true on a personal level as well as a professional level. Even I believe therapy is important. I believe that knowing where you're at as a human being on how much can I care for someone, like let's call it compassion versus caring. Compassion versus carrying. So how long am I going to carry this load of this other person? And so what I've been like tying this into emotional intelligence, I've had a great therapist for 5 years. I have great business mentors that I pay a lot of money for. And there's an ongoing theme, especially for entrepreneurs, where we care so much, but then we move past this carrying line. We're starting to carry their emotions. We're starting to carry their financial burden. We're starting to carry that. So at what point do you do it? Like at that point, it was
No boundaries.
Yeah. And I eventually had to make a choice regarding which team do I have to let go. That sucked. And at what point it was like I had to make a decision. And my decision was based on this. I have this internet team, who is my core team, where all we need is a phone line and email. I have this other team that I bought out, which is a retail storefront up in Colorado, which has all the inventory, all the storefront, all the brand that's going there. So I made the decision that I needed to get rid of the internet team because all I needed to do was forward the phone lines and the emails up to the retail team and they could handle it. So by getting rid of the internet team, I could free up that space, that overhead, that people. In hindsight, so it was more of a financial decision. In hindsight, 95%, I got rid of the wrong team. I could have found a way to keep that team and sync with the other business that was going on. Luckily, my head of operations in both places were godsends. They were immaculate. They were like best friends. I cared for them so much. I'm still friends with them today. We're super close. At what point, right? Learning to have those boundaries a little bit sooner. But that was a really hard decision. But the good news is I made a commitment that they were all going to get into better jobs and I will work with them on the exit until they find those jobs to get them in better positions. Man, did that suck. I cried a couple times over those 6 months. Like, what am I going to do? How am I going to make this work for them?
Especially being so rooted in culture and caring for others.
Yeah.
So Brad, through your journey, can you give me a story of when you did listen to your intuition?
Yeah. When I graduated college, I knew that I didn't want to go work for any firms. It was something that was embedded in me. I did not believe in working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, 50 weeks on for only 2 weeks off. I didn't want to put on a suit. I had a dad who was an amazing role model of what entrepreneurship meant. And he came from nothing. Having time for his children, having time for himself, having time to go to the gym. And I made a decision that I knew what I didn't want to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew what I didn't want to do. I firmly believe that time is our most precious asset. And I don't want to have just 2 weeks off. And my intuition was this: when I graduated from Michigan State, had a great degree, excelled in it, amazing college, and I had the big 6 firms offering me some good money. Well, I declined them all, went out to work in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, traveled around the Western US for 6 weeks with my German Shepherd and my Forerunner, ended up in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, where I basically worked for minimum wage while trying to start other companies. So my intuition was, I just know what I don't want to do. And maybe you've had it, Tom. Like, I can't tell you how many Uber rides I've had, people in their 20 and 30 somethings where they just quit their job or they know they don't want to go work for this other place. They're like, I don't know, but I just know that this isn't for me. And I tell them, I'm like, just stay the path. Like, whatever that is, stay that path. And so from that, choosing to follow my intuition of what I didn't want to do, the big stop where that helped me now, I've probably been in the 1% of time freedom ever since I was 29 years old. Like, it took some years to do it, but I have more time freedom and flexibility than anyone else. Not anyone else. I'm just in the top. Have I always been in the top, like 1 to 5% of financials? Hell no. In fact, being an entrepreneur, a lot of the times I'm in the top 1% of being poor. It's negative money, right?
Yeah.
You're poor. Yeah. You literally have a negative P&L going for a while. But choosing that path, if I was going to think of the 3 greatest decisions in my life that have had profound impacts, one of those was choosing not to go work for the firms and follow my intuition of what I don't want to do and see what was going to come with it. And it took a decade, it took about a decade to actually have that come back. But that was one of the greatest decisions of my life. And I'm consistently thankful for it. Like, that was the right move.
What are the other 2 decisions?
Quitting smoking. I started smoking cigarettes when I was 17 years old. Tried to quit probably, second or third year in. I don't know if you've ever smoked. It is hard to quit. I smoked for 15 years and finally started smoking cigarettes that had no chemicals in them. And within 2 months, I was able to quit it cold turkey, never looked back.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you're basically like smoking a thing, but it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
Actually inhaling. Oh.
Yeah. And I noticed it right away. I picked them up from an Indian reservation in Scottsdale, and they were called, I think they're called Quest, where there's low nicotine and super low. And when I was first smoking them, it felt like I was having to hit it. Like I could literally feel me get nothing. I was having hot flashes, seeing things. In fact, I started smoking more in the first couple weeks, and it was more of just the
Yeah.
fixation while being out. And next thing you know, I would have to tell myself I was a smoker. I'd be like, "Oh, that's right, I need to go smoke." I would go outside with coffee, and I would just forget that I'm a smoker. And I'd start missing some days, and finally, I didn't have a pack in the morning. And my head of operations, the best friend, goes, "Just don't go pick one up." And I didn't. Literally, never thought about it. Don't.
I'm interested of the idea of smoking because I'm thinking of the idea of, like you were addicted to cigarettes or nicotine, but we also have so many addictions in our everyday life that are considered normal, being workaholic, being, you know, worried about checking our phones or whatever. I guess what was happening and when you wanted to smoke, let's say there's a time where you didn't have cigarettes, what was going through your mind or through your body?
I don't know that answer because it was such a habit. You're having a cigarette every 1 to 2 hours. So
So it's kind of
I
an
can't,
unconscious habit, like repetitiveness.
yeah, I
But when
can't
you would,
relate it to a
if
trigger.
you were to, if you were to stop, I guess like what would trigger you wanting a cigarette?
Coffee, probably
Yes.
basic, probably basic business stress. So what I'm noticing now is as part of my like efficiency and productivity, like running really productive companies and lifestyles, I think one of the important things to do is consistent breaks. Like when I'm at my peak, I probably only work for about 20 to 30 minutes at a time, take a break for 5 to 10. That's the Pomodoro method.
What does
And
a break
that
look
might
like?
literally just getting up. I can just set my watch for 3 to 5 minutes. I can look around. I'm like, okay, I need to clean up the dishes. I need to do these things. I need to walk around. And it's amazing how long the 3 minute, the 4 minute break can feel like, because then the body's urging to almost want to get back to work. So the Pomodoro technique, I think, is a really powerful technique because it keeps you sharp, allows you to take breaks, it lets the body to get up and move. And we run. We start to dull down. You're sitting at the same time, your brain's getting out of function. It needs a consistent refresh on what's happening. So
Do you
it
feel
might
that?
be tied into something like that. Like literally you need a break. So I'm kind of tying in the cigarette thing. It's probably like I need to get up, step
Okay.
away, let my mind and body refresh with something for 3 to 5 minutes. That's kind of a cigarette break.
To that point, like what was the system that you called it? It has like a
Uh,
name.
it's called Pomodoro.
Pomodoro. Does that ever like get you out of flow? Because sometimes I'll be like working on something and like 2 hours have passed by, but like, wow, I thought this was like 20 minutes.
It, yes, and I can just hit the button and say I'm going to keep going.
Hmm.
It
Okay.
actually, on the relative side, helps me keep in flow way more. In fact, when I'm in my hardest times, when I look back to, I think it's about 4 or 5 years ago, it was one of my dark times, dad passing, relationship ending, one business failure, another one's ending up, like all the big things in life were lining up. And a lot of it is not just getting up in the morning and being like, okay, moving the body, getting the exercise, doing the things. It's like, how in the hell am I going to move some things forward today? And just by sitting with a journal in the morning and looking down and saying, what am I going to do? And keeping it so simple, just the mental framework of saying, you know what? I'm just going to work 15 minutes at a time. And just thinking I can get through the next 15 minutes was a key leverage. Just like, all right, 15 minutes and that's done. Break 15 and 15. And next thing you know, it starts grabbing the momentum. And I spent a lot of time in that space, maybe 6 months to a year. And it's think about all the psychological factors, like what comes up for you. Chunking it down so little, be like, okay, all I need to do is make a call. That's simple. I can do that. All I need to do is maybe go online and actually do this research. All I need to do is do this promotion and put out this content. All I need to do is to actually run the financials for this. All I need to do is call this person. All I need to do is actually go like clean up this mess. So literally when those are so small chunked down and we get momentum, I think that everything's momentum. We're either making decisions every couple minutes that are going up or down, and it's a flow. And we get that return on investment financially, emotionally. What is this next 15 minutes going to do for me? Am I going to have a healthy meal? What am I going to put into my body? What am I going to put out there? So there's something real about that human body and our energy and the emotion where almost everything is a decision. And what is that decision going to return back to us? 15 minutes at a time was like really big for me.
I feel like that would really help with procrastination.
Yes.
Keep that in
So,
mind.
so how does that relate to your world?
I'm in a stage where I'm like wanting to make content, and a big thing is editing. And sometimes I'll get in this editing flow, like I'm having fun, it's great. But sometimes there's like a little resistance of starting. So the idea of like, can you just do 15 minutes? They're kind of like, can you take one bite of the giant elephant? You don't have to eat the whole elephant. So I think that's kind of cool. I'm looking to keep a balance with my workflow of, I'm looking for when I am doing it out of excitement, more of like worthiness versus lack of worthiness. Am I doing stuff just to get it complete and then I feel worthy that I felt like I got enough done today? Or am I doing stuff out of excitement?
And that could be the emotional component, right? Like what emotional ROI are you feeling?
Yeah. And that's why I like what you're saying with emotional ROI is just, you know, right now with making content, the emotional ROI is good, but it's like, okay, what exactly is that? Having these deep conversations is great. Right? Reflecting with writing a newsletter is great. Sharing content and I get to talk to other people about, what they thought of it. That's great. Now, when it comes to optimizing for views, optimizing for likes, trying to get people engaged, okay, now when I realize the emotional side's like, okay, this is exhausting. Now, sometimes there's a point where it's kind of fun to think of like, oh, here's different strategies. I can do that. But also like this stuff has to get out on these days, all these times. It's like, okay. But like the other day, I was like, I really want to get this content out. And my fiance was like, hey, like food's ready. And normal me would be like, no, you gotta grind. You gotta get it done. Like, okay, what if something's posted 2 hours later? Like it's fine.
Right?
If it doesn't get posted at all, it's okay. The focus of this is for me, my growth. So
Yeah. And the grind culture is interesting because there's no right answer. I'm also against the grind culture. Grind is needed at first, I think, to get the airplane off the ground. But oh man, just don't believe in grinding consistently every week, every year. And that's someone's nature. That's cool. Like you got the Gary V's of the world and things like that. Like if that's your nature, that's amazing because some people can't turn it off. My preference is some people ask me like, how do I run such productive, efficient, chill companies and lifestyles? A lot of it because let's just call it, I'm so damn lazy. I want to enjoy life. I want to be at the beach. I want to be with my friends. I want to take a vacation. I want to go on hikes. I want my own free time. So it's almost like I can grind so efficiently that the reason for that why is my free time. I just want to do what I love to do with people that I love to do it with.
I've been diving into this idea of grind culture. There are good things from grinding, like being consistent is a great trait to have success, gets you in the direction that you want to go, the desired outcome. Now, self-sacrificing in order to get that is where it gets toxic. There's like the grinding, I'm going to push through versus just being in flow. So it's like, okay, like being in flow, you can execute a lot. And, it really, when it comes down to time, if you're in flow, you don't really care how much time it is. If I can be in flow for a month straight, it'd be great. No extra time, that's fine. I'm in flow. It's exciting. It's fun. I'm being creative. But when it gets to grinding, I always think of grinding gears on a manual car. That's not healthy for you or for anything. What I think is interesting is I've been thinking of the idea of, okay, so how do you be in more flow? But the idea of controlling with grind culture, you can control that. You can force yourself. But when you're in flow, the idea of controlling flow is actually what dissipates it. You can't. If you try to control flow, you will have no flow. So the idea of, to actually be in a flow is you have to like remove some things. So kind of was what you're saying of the 15-minute thing. Well, you're kind of removing the hesitation of the idea of like, I got to eat this entire elephant. Where what you're saying is like, don't worry about that. Just take a bite.
Be in flow for 15 minutes. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
Great connection. Yeah.
Yeah. So really, and it's almost like, I don't know if it's like be in flow for 15 minutes. It's like, just get started. And then, if you're like, I'm just pushing through, I'm great. Maybe it's take a step back. Maybe not a 3-minute break, maybe a 15-minute break.
Yeah.
Maybe,
it can be longer. I can feel it. I can start to feel it. People called it, there's words online for that, like brain rot, tech rot. I can actually feel
Oh,
when I can start to feel when I'm starting to rot. And then when I get that
okay.
feeling, I'm like, okay, I just need to stop, because then I'm trying to grind through it. Like literally I can see myself, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm like, man, just gonna go on a 5-10 minute break, or just change
Yeah.
up the brain chemistry was there, call the mom, call someone, set up something else. But
Yeah.
literally it's like I can feel myself trying to grind through that moment, when in reality, one thing that's working a lot for, let's call it the intuition side of this, is noticing over and over again how true what Brian Tracy said, that we can almost solve anything if we just stop for 30 minutes. If we just stop and let our brain be and let it get really quiet. And allowing the brain to get quiet, I believe, taps into the intuition. And then those answers come up. And normally my answers can't be forced. My answers are coming in times of intuition and creativity, when the brain is chill and it's open. Then something comes in and says, that's the answer. That's what I can play with now, or now I can get back into flow. And then that spark
Okay.
generates that flow state to do that.
Yeah. I kind of feel so to me, like the intuition will only speak to you in the present. So being in that 30 minutes, I think is great that's the time to like be present, which I think a little trap would be like doom scrolling. Like if you spend 30 minutes, if you stop for 30 minutes and you're scrolling through Facebook, it's like, and you just made it worse. It's that you lost your 30 minutes. So,
Yeah. And man, can I feel that? Like I'm pretty good. I'd say, I'm 4 out of 5 stars at controlling my social media, like my awareness of my diet, of what's going into my mind and my eyes on social media.
okay. Your
So
content
there's a
diet,
yeah,
awareness of
so
your content. Okay. I like that.
yeah. So it's consumption. It's just like what's going into my body, what's going into my mind.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to relate this back to Scotland. Like my signal to noise ratio got so high. And last year when I went to Canada for 2 months, I went to go hike British Columbia. My signal to noise ratio got so high, and I got so peaceful and so creative, and I slept like a baby. And so it's having the best ideas for the company. The
Yeah.
signal is how powerful our signal is in our focus. So we
Focus,
can,
okay.
yeah, call it focus, call it flow. Noise is the distraction, the inbox is going off, the people interrupting us, the brain fog.
Scrolling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the talk, the chitter chatter in the mind. And so my signal to noise ratio got so high. So I'm gonna relate this to social media. So I was like, okay, what are these things that are actually working? Okay, I'm waking up in the morning. First of all, I'm in nature. Nature is a huge signal to noise generator. It's a huge intuition generator. Being in nature was probably, and hiking was my number one entrepreneurship intuition moment that generated 26 million in sales, which was me hiking with my dog and my German Shepherd. Oh, how am I going to get something started? How am I going to quit my day job? What do I need to do? What do I need to sell online? And I'm like, you know what? I was hiking over the river by my dog, and I used to talk to my dog. And I was like, you know what, Brad? Drums and percussion. You play it. Music's never going away. Why don't you try selling drum and percussion gear? Within 2 weeks, sold some gear online. That was the portal to being able to quit the day job. And I think we pulled about 26 million in sales over those years. So what can I do to generate more signal or more intuition with that? But
Okay.
nature was really big. And then not seeing the phone a lot and the social media, in my eyes is only coming beauty. I see nature. I might be listening to podcasts, or I was listening to a lot of Alan Watts and a lot of Eckhart Tolle. So what was going into my mind and my ears was big. And there's only 2 times I remember in that trip where I got really stressed out and I couldn't sleep. I was sleeping like a baby. So all of a sudden, one night I'm just laying there in my car. I'm all tucked in after a crazy hike. I'm getting warm. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to see what's going on in the United States. So I grab my phone, flip on the social media, and make it relate to this. And I was seeing the lady from Ukraine who was on the train who ended up getting stabbed. And then it was
I
seeing
remember
that film. And then it was noticing, and it wasn't, and then all of a sudden my anger really started peaking. It was like, and it made me want to call it kill. It made me want to like hurt people. And it wasn't really the guy who did it. It was seeing the people on the train who did nothing. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, I want to hurt friends of those people to see what it's like for them to go through it. Anyhow, I couldn't sleep that night. And then it was like that same night, I remember they're interviewing like Charlie Kirk, and he's talking about things, and it became like racial and divisive. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm getting triggered. And I couldn't sleep. The next day happens. I go on a beautiful hike. I come back. I'm like, maybe I'm going to flip on social media for a little bit more. Well, then Charlie Kirk got assassinated. And then you're seeing all these people and you're like, oh, we just lost someone great. And you're seeing people like, well, I'm not against violence, but, and you're just like, and I'm like, holy shit. And I'm like, I want to kill those people. Right. And so I just noticed it tying into the social media. And then I was seeing Chase Hughes, like Chase Hughes and like CIA. There's Chase Hughes who's in the CIA, and he was a terrorist negotiator, and people like that. And Chase Hughes was trying to ground people.
Oh, yeah.
Listen,
Chase is cool.
Yeah. And his point was this. Yeah. His point was this. People listen. They will intentionally show you things in your feed that you find are so asinine that it will trigger your emotional state and want you to get involved. I want you to know that most people aren't like that more than 80 to 90% of people are okay. They're normal. And that's just part of the psyop, that they will show you the most asinine, effed up things in people in order to get you triggered, in order to get you into its environment. And I was like, wow, that's really good. So really, in a way, that noise, that distraction from our intuition, social media is sometimes feeding our algorithm of what we want. Like, I just want the Gary V's, I want the Natures, I want the Eckhart Tolle's, I want like the positive things, but it's meant to trigger us. So back to that social media thing, which is, I was like, oh, that's what happened. I consumed the wrong social media, and now I'm triggered, and it took me a couple days to calm down. I'm like, okay, I just got to be discerning of what's actually going in there. So yeah, bringing that back to signal to noise ratio, intuition. Abraham Hicks is so deep into our law of attraction. Our fundamental thing is, what thought are you choosing at this moment? And when we're in that low state, it's like, are you choosing to go on a walk, to go hang out, to call someone you love, to go be with yourself, versus turning on the news, versus getting what are you consuming? Like, what's around your environment? And just making that tiny step to get back into that flow state. Because I'm sure you've had so many examples. When I'm in flow state, when I'm in a very high vibe, let's call it a very high vibration, it's almost crazy, not only the level that you can achieve and flow through, but the way that I believe in there's a power of the universe, the way that it feels that other components and people are actually working with me, like getting the phone call, getting the thing, having the idea, meeting that person.
Yeah, it's almost like a compounding interest, or like a domino effect of
Totally.
like, emotional wealth, or like progress, or I don't know, flow with the universe, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. Flow with yourself.
Yeah. So, Brad, tell me a story when you did not listen to your intuition.
See, there's so many of those that were there. Let's see if I was like,
that list is always longer.
I know. Oh man. I think I have a professional and a personal example. On the professional side, roughly 7-8 years into the music company, we had a new hire, and something seemed to be a little bit off. And I wasn't in the office that much. I was between Arizona and Colorado, going between the two companies. And the new hire was in Arizona with the original team. And sometimes you can notice things when you walk into a room, like there might be a little vibe that's off. And then I started to hear complaints from some of the employees, like, hey, when this person's here, I'm starting to feel off. I'm not enjoying the interactions with this person. And my head of ops and my best friend was bringing it up as well, but he was in control of the hires. I was like, it's your team, you can do it. And we both had that same mentality of, we want things to work out. We believe things we can work out. We believe in people. I must take too much responsibility. Like, oh, what am I doing wrong to not influence this person in the right way that's going to behave them? Am I not giving them the right carrot? Is it a financial carrot? Is it an emotional carrot? Is it a lack of influence? So I'm taking too much responsibility on how to get this person to change. Well, little by little, as the time went on, I was like, I think we need to get rid of the person, but it wasn't my decision. And I could have said something. And same with my head of ops. And next thing you know, by time, what do you do? I caught him on camera doing something, looking in the back end of some things inside of the financials and his time clocks and things like that. And I remember seeing him from home. It was the first time I'd ever actually looked at cameras to see what was going on, because I was suspecting something was going on. I never needed to look at cameras to be like, I need to watch someone. Cameras are always there for just in case something happens. I need to check inventory. but something was off. And it was just a crazy thing. I was sitting there at home and I'm like, I think I need to check the cameras on something. There he is talking with someone else saying, yeah, this is off. You see how this is off. We're owed all this money. And he's just going down this rabbit hole. And I'm like, oh shit. Oh shit. So the next morning he walked in, I grabbed his key and I said, okay, you're done here. We don't need you anymore. And later came a suit that he was trying to file for like back wages, back pay, and things like that, like overtime, like all the stuff that we had talked about before and already cleaned up. We're already in agreement. That was easy to do. And so he comes back more looking for more money later, victim mentality and all these things. And it cost a lot. But the point was, I still have the conversation with my best friend, even these days. He goes, man, he's like, Brad, that was my fault. I should have let him go a long time ago. I could tell by the way that he was following up after we talk about agreements, after we talk about things, he would start to challenge things are things that he deserved. There's a sense of entitlement in certain people. And my dad taught me that. Like, he said that all employees are entitled. And I don't want to talk about it from a negative frame that it's a bad thing. It's just that I believe what I've noticed is that people who have never owned their own business don't know what it's like to create something for themselves. And more importantly, have they been able to get it to a position to not only afford their basic necessities in life, but get it to a place to where now you got to hire someone else and you can afford to pay for them to know what level of energy that takes. And I believe that process removes a lot of entitlement. Like, because you're literally working for other people. You have children, right? You're working for other people. And there's something in the employee mentality where they think they deserve things, when in reality, you are showing up to work for pay. Like, that's the agreement. Like, they think they deserve more. They think they get more. I believe like it's earned. So there's something there where it's like, I deserve this simply because I come to work and I do this rather than like achieving it. So a lot of it's like the victim mentality, the I deserve this mentality. It's like, I don't know. It's like, there's like a great Chris Rock joke about it. It's like, yeah, you say like, well, you know what? I take care of my kids. Like, he's talking about the woman. I take care of my kids. It's like, you're supposed to take care of your kids. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that as something amazing in your achievement.
Yeah.
You're supposed to do that. So stop bringing it up.
Right.
You're supposed to do your job. You're supposed to do those things. So anyhow, that was a big, to bring it back to the intuition of when we didn't listen to it. That was, that cost us in the end. And it cost, I think, one of the employees who ended up leaving, who we really liked as well. So yeah.
Why did they leave?
Because they're starting to not like it there. Because of that.
Because
that was,
Yeah.
Because they were very close, sitting near each other, and he would rub him the wrong way consistently. And so,
what do they say? Like rowing the boat, like one person not rowing the right way, like one person rowing the wrong way can like throw off the whole boat.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different analogies. It was interesting to watch, like cancer, or like it spreads, or bathwater. There's literally some bad bathwater in there. You can't make it better by trying to pour in more good bathwater. You literally have to remove the toxin. And so how often do we hold on to these employees because we think that we need them? Because it sucks letting go of anyone, because now you got to take all that manpower of that 40 hours per week. And what are you going to do with it when you're already capped out, when you're already trying to make everything work? That means you got to absorb 40 hours and even learn what they're doing. So the reality is, where's your capacity at? And so what we noticed is we had a couple of times we were holding on to people out of need. And both of those times, it was like, we should have just dropped them. It would have been way easier.
It's a hard thing with staffing, because it's like, well, why did you hire someone? Because you need more help. But the thing is, you need to have you can't be too desperate for help, because you actually have to have some time to actually find the right person. So it's just like this vicious circle of like, I need someone now. So you just like grab someone, and then, they might be working 40 hours a week, but really only doing like 10 to 20 hours of like actual work, which the thing is, that has to be large enough to cover like taxes, salary, any benefits. It's just,
okay. And you brought up an important point. Yeah, you brought up an important point there, which is, I think part of the entitlement of the employee side is the lack of the awareness of how much money actually goes into an employee. So when you're on the business side and I hire you, let's just talk easy numbers. Let's say I hire you for $10 an hour, right? Then what they don't see is I'm also probably paying 10 to 20% to the government of my own money to match your taxes. I got to do the withholding. I got to do those things. I need to go pay for these things and what's there. There's a slowdown in the business. The reality is you're paying quite a bit more per hour for that person. And so there's a little bit of a lack of awareness of how much time and money it actually takes to not only hire them, but more importantly, to keep them on board. And the risk is just literally is coming out of my own pocket that I'm kind of matching your taxes. I'm not even matching your retirement. I'd rather have it go to you're just paying more fees. You're just paying more fees on top of the fees, on top of the percentages, and it has no value to anyone. It doesn't have value to you, right? The money's not going to you. The money's we're just matching your taxes. We're just going off to other places. It's super expensive. And so my dad taught me, it's like having a business is actually easy. It's crazy how easy having a business is. He goes, it's the cost of doing business is hard. So once you start doing business and you start getting clients and you have the lights on and you got to do your podcast and you got to ship the grip mat and you got to do these things, that's what gets hard. Now you're having the people to start to run things. That's hard. Having a business is almost crazy easy. You don't really have to do anything. Get a couple,
right?
And you got a couple clients,
Managing.
do some things. Yeah, but once the flow starts going, super costly, and you can have a lot of moving parts.
So, Brad, through your journey, what would you say was the emotion that you struggled with the most as an entrepreneur?
So I have 3 things coming up, maybe guilt, shame, and self-worth. And I think those 3 can be tied together. So when things aren't being successful, or even when things are successful, or I can't motivate someone the right way, or things aren't working, what am I doing wrong? I attribute to what am I doing wrong? How am I not making this work the right way? Is this bottom line that's coming through an actual reflection of my self-worth? So how much content and teaching out there is simply based on a money mindset? Oh, you have a self-worth problem. So is that self-worth problem showing up on the bottom line as well? And that could be a toxic connection.
So when you say bottom line, you mean like profit, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So that bottom line, if it is negative, then it starts to attribute to a negative self-worth. You've been trained in leadership academies. You've been involved with the content that's out there. How much is connected to, oh, you just need the money mindset? Like, think of how much stuff is being sold that is probably bullshit, that is rooted in something that doesn't need to be there psychologically. I'm not saying that it's not an important factor. I definitely believe that having a healthy, abundant mindset is an important factor. I'm also saying there's a lot of stuff that gets sold out there on why people need to go do things that really aren't true. Like as if you're going to get financially abundant simply because it's 90% rooted in your lack of self-worth, right? So those things that I would experience, the lack of self-worth, am I not doing this right? Am I connecting it to my self-worth? And then because the brain wants to go there, it will find things. So it will find reasons to say, well, this is now why I have low money, because I have low self-worth, and I have low self-worth because I'm doing this, this, and this wrong. And then you start connecting all the guilt and the shame. The brain will go find its things. It's kind of like Tony Robbins stuff 101. Like, what do you focus on? They say, like, you can prove anything. You can prove anything. Hey, is coffee great for you? How is coffee good for me? Go search on Google. Here's all the ways. Is coffee bad for me? Here's a C. So the reality is anything can be proven. Like it can. Everything is kind of good and bad for you. But tying it into that emotion and negative ones and the tough emotions to go through was that, because then I would attribute it to negative self-worth. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong? And you go to the event that's working on your emotional self-worth with stuff, right? So I think it's a slippery slope, kind of like what I got to notice in Bali a lot is how many people, mainly women, are going there for healing. And I had this great conversation at a coffee shop one day with this girl sitting next to me, and she's like, man, and she's showing me her content stuff. She goes, women got to stop and people got to stop down this fucking healing thing. She goes, it is an endless journey. It is a bottomless pit. She's like, I'm not saying you need to go heal from something, but to think that you can't go achieve something until all these things are actually healed. The reality is our sea of unhealed stuff is worth a lifetime, probably 10, 100. And if we keep trying to go and heal all the stuff, it's endless pit. And what I learned from one of like the black belts and master NLP practitioner, another thing is like you move forward, and then when you notice the thing, you go handle that, and you work on that. Then you move forward, and if you notice the thing, handle that. But do not get lost into the sea of negative self-worth, unhealed traumas, things you need to go do in order to actually move forward. Do not put your focus there and your momentum, because it's endless. It's endless. And so find a way to redirect your focus. And if you see a pattern popping up that you notice is like, okay, this is obviously in the way, then you can go handle that one thing. So I think to tie that back into, or you're talking about what are the negative self-emotions, just be careful. And if you notice a pattern.
And what you're saying of like all this healing and everything is, some of the courses that we've taken is like have a vision board, where like is having a vision part of like the healing process, or is your vision board a reflection of the lack of healing you've had? If I have a big house, if I have a car, if I, my vision is I have, a bigger house, a better car, I have more friends. So really,
Right.
you're not. That's not like the next cut. That's not the next, next level. That's just a reflection of what you have right now is not worthy. What you have right now is not enough. Which really
And
is because you feel you're not enough. You're in the lens of scarcity.
yeah, like the reality that I believe in, like I have a deep belief system that we're never done. And we're never done creating. Tony Robbins says growth is one of those things that makes us happy. You got the Esther Hicks that says, hey, we're never done creating. If we accomplished everything that we wanted to accomplish tomorrow, we had the money, the thing, like a week or two would pass and be like, well, what are we doing now? So that desire and that fulfillment is a never ending loop. It just won't stop. It's how we're programmed. We always want to create something new in what's there. So where are they feeding us the things that you're not there because of a lack of self-worth, compared to human nature is we always want to grow and expand. We always want to keep those things going. So that's the healthy part. It's like a positive frame versus a negative frame. Hey, we're always going to want to create. We're always going to want something new.
Like
Versus you don't have this because of your lack of self-worth.
Yeah, which can be in a vision board. Like, well, if I did have self-worth, this is what it'd look like.
Yeah.
A
So
red convertible.
yeah. So I want to get your take on one thing around intuition. And
Yeah.
I think it's got a slight bridge to what we are just talking about.
Yeah.
I believe that we're the creators of our own reality and our own universe. I believe that we can notice our thoughts, we can create divisions, we can be highly responsible for how we create it and how we react. Sometimes when I'm in my intuition and when an event happens that is negative, I ask myself, did I create this? Or am I just being intuitive that something is wrong? So let's say I'm having bad event X and my intuition is going off. I'm like, something's wrong with this person. Something's off in this moment. Like I've even had it in my family, in relationships. I can tell when someone says, hey, this isn't your role to check in on this. My COO and CFO mind, I can smell bullshit. And so when someone tells me this isn't your role to look into this, I know right away they're probably don't want to be held accountable for something. And I have a 100% success ratio in the recent years to be like, yeah, I was right. They were wrong. Something was off. So, but a part of this is, if I'm responsible for everything that I created, did I create this negative event? Or is it my intuition saying that something is off? So when I'm having a negative intuition, am I creating the possibility that that thing is actually manifesting?
Yeah. Well, so the thing is, it's like, are you, one thing that may be happening is you may be mistaking your intuition for something else. Because so the idea of when you sit here and say, oh, this negative thing happened, is that because of, did I manifest that? So it's almost like a reflection of your self-worth. It is my self-worth. Like, am I bad? And that's why this thing happened? Where really the thing is, if I would say, to a point, what you're like, you labeled it as bad. Your perception is that this is negative. So really the thing is, I don't know if you've heard the story of like the farmer whose son found some like wild horses, and the son rode the wild horse, and then he fell off and broke his leg. They're like, oh my God, this is terrible. But then the army came and was trying to recruit his son, but they wouldn't take him because his leg was broken. So ended up saving his son's life. So the thing is, it's like, okay, well, this bad thing is that the broken.
It's just an event. It's
horse?
neutral. Like we learned that,
right.
right?
So,
All events are neutral. It's just the meaning
right.
we put behind it. Yeah.
So the thing is, it's almost like you said, the meaning we put behind it is this positive or negative, and you're actually going a step deeper. It's like, is this affecting my work? Which may be going back to what you're saying with entrepreneurship of you had a sense of like low self-worth or lack of worthiness with entrepreneurship of like the bottom line.
Yeah.
We're
When you
really
go
like,
down.
I mean, let's just like be more accurate with the events, like sales drop. Am I manifesting this? Like a lot of people's sales drop because of COVID. It's because like there's not like a music store that was just like manifesting COVID.
Really.
It's just like,
Oh, I'm with you there.
shit happens,
I mean, I think entrepreneurships have an incredible lean towards responsibility and being responsible for creating the outcomes that they want. And that's just the yang of it. That's just the dark side of it. That is something where if I'm responsible for everything and then someone gets struck by lightning, like, is it really my fault? But it was just how I was raised, how I embedded things that I believe I can do anything. And so therefore it's my capacity to create that, which means it's also my responsibility when things are off. So that's kind of the Achilles heel of it. I mean, entrepreneurs and business owners are just super responsible and super creative and for their own lives and what they want to do.
I love that you said this, brought up the topic of self-worth, because I'm realizing a lot of the foundation that I built my business was off of a lack of self-worth. So that was almost like there's some good things I did with GritMat, which was like a solid foundation of rock, and then the lack of self-worth was like building on sand. So like half my house is like built on sand. So the thing is, when you say, like, when a bad thing happens, whether that's sales dip or whatever, the thing is, entrepreneurship is almost like the board game, where the thing is, if we play checkers and I win, it's not that your worthiness is any less and mine is more. But the hard part is a lot of entrepreneurs believe that. Oh, I won so many board games of checkers. I'm actually a grandmaster of chess. So, because I sold this business and now I sold this other business, and where really it's just like, what's the value of you as a human? If you sold 10 companies, your value as a human is the same as someone, a poor person in India, Brazil, anywhere. So Brad, if you could talk to your younger self listening to this conversation, what would you say about the value of intuition?
I would say it's important to sit with it and to not get caught up in the saying, always trust your gut. I believe that we are human beings. We have a lot of projections. Our brain is weird. We've been through experiences, both genetic as well as environmental, that it's a discernment. And if all I needed to do was always trust my gut, then this life would be easy. I've had plenty of experiences where I went with my gut and that was the wrong decision. I believe it's powerful, and I believe when the intuition is speaking multiple times over, there's probably something there to listen to. And all generalizations are lies, including this one. So to say to always trust your gut is a lie, because you will have times where you tried to trust your gut and it was the wrong decision. In order to get to a place where you can have as much intuition as possible, have a clear mind and notice the things that you can do to have a clear mind. Clear diet, socially, what's in your environment, being in nature, clean water, being outside. And even that's part of the fundamentals of running a highly efficient, stress-free, productive company and lifestyle. My first rule, you must be out of your head with everything you got to manage. Otherwise, it's all clogged up. That's why you're overwhelmed. That's why you're reactive all the time. The first rule is stop using your head. Fundamentals 101. Stop using your head. Simple things over here so you can have a clear mind, so that you can be creative and so that you can be intuitive. Intuition matters. It's there. I think we have a very, very aware, in tune human guiding system. And then what can you do to have that in tune as much as possible?
Love that. Brad, this was amazing. Thank you for carving out some time to meet up.
Absolutely.
If this episode gave you something real, join our community by hitting subscribe. And if someone came in mind while you were listening, send this to them. We're better together, and the right conversation can change someone's direction. I want to invite you to my Saturday newsletter called Emotional Mastery. 5 minutes each week to sharpen your intuition and strengthen your emotional intelligence. To sign up, it's the top link in the description. Now let's keep this momentum going and check out this next episode. I'll see you in there.